Hey, well, I'm going to pass without further ado. Let's jump straight in. So thanks so much for everyone's time on today's webinar, which is going to be focused on competitor research strategies. My name is Gerald Murphy, and I work here at SimilarWeb, based in our London office. I work very closely with our product and data teams behind the scenes, but I also help out with marketing activities with you guys as well. And I'm joined by two amazing people on the agency side, and quite frankly, I have a lot of bias towards agencies. It's where I personally learned a lot of my own career experience, and I have a very, very soft spot for those in the agency space. So we're joined by Alex from 26 Digital and Joel. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Very good indeed. Alex, do you mind just kicking off and telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having us. My name is Alex Blakey. I'm Media Director at 26 Digital. 26 is an agency which is part of the MSQ group, so international sort of group of 11 agencies. 26 at 26, I'm responsible for paid search, organic search, programmatic, PR, affiliate marketing, and data science. And I think what's really interesting for me, like today, is again being part of someone who's a bit of an advocate of SimilarWeb, and obviously this is just not. I'm not being paid to do this, but I think there's a really useful conversation around how to use it. But I think just in terms of my experience as well is, I've worked with about 50 clients across all those sort of different services and across multiple categories. So travel, e-commerce. And then I think just in my experience as well is just partly prior to this, I worked at a couple of other agencies, independent and network, and prior to that I was at Google. So for me this is again it's appreciate being on this call, and hopefully I can add some value and give some answer some good questions.
Amazing, Alex. Thank you so much again for your time on today's session. And then of course we have Joel here, who's the Executive Director and Founder of PPC Designs. Hey Joel, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Of course, Gerald. So thank you very much for having me here. So I'm the founder of PPC Designs. PPC Designs is a boutique performance-based agency. Basically, what we do is we cover everything that it takes in order to get the most out of an ad impression, from the ad impression itself all the way to the sale, which could be deep down the website. We work with just very few customers that we could really customers that we really partner up closely with and kind of integrate with as far as their marketing efforts go. We sort of act as their team, if I could say that. I've been running PPC campaigns for a very long time. Actually, I first started back in the year 2000 when PPC was really at its infancy. I got really into it on a more serious level when I arrived in Israel. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. Now I'm based in Tel Aviv. When I arrived in Israel, I worked at Wix for about 2 years, and shortly after, I worked at SimilarWeb for a brief period of time, shortly before the platform was launched, before I started working, with my own agencies. So I'm very happy to be here again, doing something with SimilarWeb. It's a great company, and I'm really excited to see how this works out.
Super cool, Joel. Thanks so much. And we've already talked about, before we've even really got started, multi-channel marketing is really important. Buyer and consumer's journey is really important. It's about looking at metrics like impression share and really starting to see what else we can do with information we have to fuel our marketing strategies going forward. So today we're going to be looking at revamping our competitor research strategies so that we can start to challenge ourselves internally to see what else we can do along with our project plans, our current live activities, our upcoming activities, to see what else we can really do to further drive performance and have a much better understanding of our competitor strategies. This is a time for you as well. So anyone that's on the real live demo, of course, there will be a recording sent out afterwards, also hosted on YouTube on the SimilarWeb channel. This is a time for us to have thoughtful discussions, give practical advice. We've got two ultra experienced people on today's panel, and they're more than happy to answer any questions throughout the webinar. So please do keep those coming in the Q&A section. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a bar. Towards the middle, you should see the Q&A button. Simply click that, a pop-up will appear, and that will allow you to successfully submit a question. We have two people amazingly behind the scenes, Alexei and Julia, who will approve those questions, and we'll keep this really interactive throughout today's hybrid discussion. So again, this is all about helping you to implement other strategies that you're currently doing as part of your campaign. As mentioned, this is a hybrid webinar where we're actually going to have a panel discussion. But first of all, we're going to go through a few thought leadership slides. And first up is Alex from 26. Alex.
Thanks, Gerald. Thank you. Listen, there's a couple of slides here just to set the scene. And apologies if the lights go off because we're in an eco-friendly room, and if I don't move enough, they will go off. But starting this, I use a sort of a LinkedIn post, which is about a month ago, from Ran Fishkin, who happens to be a friend of SimilarWeb as well. Actually, he's done a couple of sessions. He's an absolute legend and founder of Moz, which, for those who don't know, Moz was the OG sort of SEO tool, and actually one of the best books, actually entrepreneurial books you'll ever read. So I fundamentally recommend that. The bit about this post that made me sort of reach out to me, and I liked it at the time, was not about about the attribution point he's making per se, but it's about the fact that it's about data and trust and knowing what you can trust as a marketeer. And I think one of the interesting things around SimilarWeb is again, what I like about SimilarWeb is certainly as a trust factor. So, there is a bit here where we're told that everything's dead simple because it's digital, everything's measurable. To a point, it is, right? But we're also working in a far different world to the one we were pre-pandemic, and not just because of obviously COVID, but because of privacy, and because actually we talk about ecosystems. And one of the things that we talk about at 26 is the different ecosystems. And I think when you bring it back to search, paid and organic, we talk about them very separately sometimes. In fact, we have separate departments, but ultimately it's one search. It's one SERP, sorry. It's one SERP for the user. Like the consumer's looking at one SERP. They might now know the difference between what's a paid ad and what's an organic ad because it's been around for a while. But at the end of the day, it's one SERP. And Google is one ecosystem. Microsoft, Bing is another ecosystem. ByteDance is another. The point is these ecosystems exist. Consumers don't think about advertising and how we join them together. But ultimately, our job is to try and use those ecosystems to advertise and to make sure that we are promoting our clients in the best possible way for the most relevant thing. Now, what I like about Rand's post is that it recognizes that there's a lot of guff out there. There's a lot of people who say it's easy. There's a lot of people who say actually this is dead simple. And I think there's obviously LinkedIn different conversation, but I think there's a bit here where when I think about SimilarWeb and why I trust it, I think about it in the three ways. As a marketer who uses a lot of tools, and I'll come on to that in a second, and where SimilarWeb fits within that. Because SimilarWeb isn't the only tool, just to be clear, but and I'll come on to why I think it's really, really essential to understanding your competitors and understanding actually how to deliver a winning strategy. But I also think about it as again, with someone who uses a lot of tools and has a lot of hands-on experience on using a wide range of tools. And what do I need if it was my account, my money, my budget? Well, how would I choose to invest that? And I think, I'll come on to that in a second. But then as an agency leader, so someone who actually has responsibility for making decisions around teams, what tools we use and where we invest. And actually as an agency, our tool budget is probably, one of the other than people, it's the second biggest cost. And so we need to be very mindful of what we offer, because ultimately that is a big part of what differentiates us from other agencies, and certainly differentiates us as an agency from clients who want to do in-house. The cost of tools is a massive barrier to that. And then obviously we are nothing really without our clients. And ultimately all our clients pay us for is to grow. They're not paying us to be really smart and provide nice, context and insight. They're providing us, they pay us to grow their business. Now, growing the business through paid and organic search is probably the single biggest, investment that they will have in many cases. And actually for a lot of clients, in fact, in the UK alone, it's, search is the single biggest investment. It's about sort of, it was about £7 billion in the UK in the last 12 months. And obviously, if you factor in SEO on top of that and the time spent in SEO, it's a significant investment. So something which is really, really important. But the point is, again, the point here is about the trust aspect. Next slide, please, Gerald. And then, so the question is, how do we use it at 26? How do I think about SimilarWeb? And when I was invited to onto this panel and talk about how we use tools, the importance of competitor insight, I'm really thinking about it from the client perspective. Because again, it's not about being smart and having nice context. It's about how do I grow? So there's 4 stages of our relationships with clients, which actually how I then think about where I use SimilarWeb. One is in the chemistry perspective, which is when we meet clients for the first time. We might not have access to any of their proprietary data or their platforms. So, for example, it'd be great to have access to everyone's Search Console and everyone's analytics and everyone's first-party data, so you can make all those informed decisions. But ultimately, we don't have that at that stage. Now, the chemistry session is really important because when we think about working with clients and clients working with us, more importantly, we need to demonstrate that there's opportunity to growth. Ultimately, that's why they're looking to partner with us. That conversation is really important, and where SimilarWeb is really, really important, because whilst we don't have access to those platforms like I just mentioned, the reality is we can look at those categories. We can look at where they fit within their competitors' set. And just to be really clear, at the end of the day, Google is an auction. The search engine is an auction. So by not understanding your competitors, it's kind of like that's flawed in how we might approach an auction. So understanding how your competitors behave and what they do and being able to stay on top of that is critical. I'll come on to that second. But actually, from a perspective here, it's about understanding where your competitors are, looking at sort of aspects of what categories, what category analysis, how big is that, the volume of that category, how is it affected by season, and then ultimately looking at things, how does that differ from territory to territory. And one of the benefits of SimilarWeb is you can look at it at that level, and you can also look at it at device level. But importantly, we're also unlikely to have actually much access at that point. So really, when you're thinking about it, that's, unless we've got lots of other accounts in that particular category, which could pose a problem in regards to, certainly how you would talk about that. We would never talk about our clients in that way. The reality is this is the best thing you could use. SimilarWeb is the best way you can start to think about how we look at those, I guess, the analysis and understand what it is they're growing and how they want to grow. And then you've got the next stage, which is the RFP process. So that's more formal. That's where a prospective client will give us will invite us to pitch. And that's where we answer a brief. So a request for proposal, RFP brief. And ultimately, that's where we might get access to, say, Search Console and analytics. And then the role of SimilarWeb becomes really important to understand, again, the context of the category. In many ways, SimilarWeb is like looking at someone else's analytics. It's like looking at analytics if you had access to that. But it also allows us to look at that, say, that bigger context. And the context is key because a lot of those briefs will be asking for growth. They'll be asking for a better way of doing something. And again, being an agency, we don't want to just say, yeah, we can do it. Let's go for it. We want to be able to actually put that into measurable sort of stages. And one of the things we do when we think about auditing, we have an audit process which is called RAW, and we look at our tools, but specifically SimilarWeb, and certainly creating the reality and the opportunity. So in that respect, if a client said, okay, I want to grow, I want to double the size of our lead generation, or I want to double the size of our e-commerce sales, then actually in a mature market, you're only going to really be able to do that from stealing share from someone else. So knowing who that is and how you might go about that is really, really important. And then you've got the third stage, which is when we work with clients for a while, sometimes we still need to think about brief creation and business cases. And especially right now where, the budgets aren't as fluid as they once were. And actually what clients are looking for is support in not just brief creation, but business case creation. So they need to say, look, we need to invest in this because it's going to deliver. How do we then go about that? And that, again, is where SimilarWeb is absolutely essential to help us with our clients in that respect, to help create that business case. Because going back to that competitive analysis, and again, we're talking at a top level here. We're not just talking at search and paid and organic search, but it's about then creating measurable objectives. So knowing what the actual visits of a competitor is over a period of time, and how much we think they're investing in search, and how many visits, what's the balance between paid and organic, mobile and desktop, is really, really important when we think about creating those forecasts. And then finally, once we're in a more of a pattern and mature relationship with a client, we talk about governance. So obviously we would have reports which look at performance from the engine, from analytics, from wherever else, and we'll bring that into one sort of dashboard. There is an opportunity, we do this with certain clients, is to have this have the API from SimilarWeb to think about the context. So not only are we looking at obviously benchmarks and market share, as well as performance, we're able to put that into context. And when we're able to do that, we're also able to look backwards to see what did we do there, and how did we perform against the objectives we set, But really, really importantly, and this is where reporting is critical, is then deciding what to do next. How do we just decide where to put the investment? Sorry, Joe. And those are the 4 stages. I think it's really critical. And again, all of that is about competitors. And then where's this sit? Sorry, Gerald, next slide. Thank you. Where's this sit within what we do? Because as an enterprise agency, I'd be lying to you if I said we only relied on SimilarWeb. We don't. We rely on lots of tools. And I think here you would see there's elements here of digital PR. There's elements here of audience research. There's elements here of SEO specifically, STAT, which is part of Moz, Ahrefs, and then elements of conversion optimization and testing. But I would say there's 2 on this page which actually are absolutely critical for someone like me and someone who's thinking about strategy for their clients, digital strategy for their clients. Nielsen's very good because it tells us about inputs, and YouGov's very good because it tells us about audience, and Nielsen's very good because it tells us where people spend at the top of the funnel. But SimilarWeb is the most important of these in regards to telling us as a one-stop shop to a certain extent what is the outcomes. So I'm interested, as our clients are, in what they pay us for is to deliver outcomes. Nielsen and YouGov is great because it talks about audiences and sort of top of the funnel, and we can all go, right, well, so-and-so is spending so much money here and they're doing on TV, and this is what audiences like and how they like to be spoken to. That's really good and it's important. But when we're in the world of outcomes, we can match what people are spending and what they're saying with actually how many visits they're getting. How many visits are they getting from a paid perspective? How many visits are they getting from organic? How many visits are they getting from social? How many visits are they getting from affiliate marketing, et cetera, et cetera? And that's why, for me, it's probably the first tool I go to when we're in either in early stages of a client conversation, certainly, and actually all the way up until all of those 4 stages, which is the life cycle, if you like, of how we manage and work with clients. But yeah, and that's for me is really where it sits. And I think there's a really strong conversation to us from a general marketing and strategy perspective at an enterprise level. It's the first name on the team sheet.
Super cool. Thanks so much indeed, Alex. And now we have Joel from PPC Designs. Joel, over to you.
Thank you, Gerald, and thanks, Alex. So I'm going to talk about how we use SimilarWeb or competitive analysis in general. I think much of what I'm going to say actually overlaps with what Alex presented, because we both work in similar fields. But I think I'm going to get into kind of give more insight into actually the way my unique perspective is on it. As far as, and by the way, I'm talking about competitive analysis in general. SimilarWeb is the best tool out there for this. I mean, there are others as well, but when I talk about competitive analysis, I'm just talking about the ability to use tools in order to get insight into what competition is doing. And really that helps me with 3 things from a macro viewpoint. First of all, scouting opportunities, business opportunities. That opportunity for me could come in the form of meeting a new client, which is what Alex was talking about. New opportunities can also come from potential partners that I might be joining. Building new campaigns or launching new businesses, that's another area that competitive analysis is essential. And then also optimizing and improving on existing campaigns or existing businesses. I mean, that is another area that, that competitive analysis does help. As Alex mentioned before, I mean, everything that happens with pay-per-click advertising happens within an auction, ad auctions. So because of that, it is competitive. And oftentimes, it just takes a little bit in order to beat the competition. So I find SimilarWeb to be an essential tool in my kit in order to give me the extra edge that I may need in order to beat the competition or get more insight. When it comes to scouting new customers for opportunities, when I'm looking at something, if I'm considering working with somebody, I will, first of all, want to understand what their potential market size is and also understand the competitive landscape. I mean, those are the 2 areas primarily that it's helping me with. In addition, if I'm meeting with a new customer, before meeting with them, I could get ideas as far as what they're currently doing. I could compare them to their competitors. And also when I meet with that client, a lot of times what I will want to do in order to make that sale, in order to get them to have faith in me, in order to get them to trust me, is give them information, tell them something which makes them think, And without having access to, say, their Google Analytics or their Google Search Console, as Alex was mentioning, or their Google Ads accounts, I can maybe understand that by using competitive analysis tools such as SimilarWeb, which could help me walk into that room from day one and give that impression that I'm able to, like provide valuable, valuable service just with, the way I'm able to understand, the situation and improve on it. So besides, opportunities, so that's how it really helps me with, let's say, starting business. And then once I'm able to close that business and I'm launching new campaigns, well, the first thing that competitive analysis does for me, it helps me understand my starting point. It helps me understand where this current project stands and the overall landscape and the overall competitive landscape, right? I could understand, for example, like let's say that's an already established business that I'm working with, they're a new client. I could understand where they fall as far as rankings go compared to the competition. I could also understand the potential market size to understand how big we can potentially grow. Competitive analysis also helps me understand the feasibility of different marketing channels. With the way I manage pay-per-click ads, I manage all aspects of PPC. I don't stick just with search. I look at each platform as a different tool to pay for the traffic you want to get to the site. While search advertising, whether it be on Bing or Google, has you bid based on the keyword, which is great because you're working off of the intent of the person. Other channels such as, let's say, YouTube or Facebook or so on, is going more off of who the person is or what they're interested in. That's what they let you use to target them, right? So if I'm starting something new, I'm going to look at every single option that I have from every different pay-per-click platform out there. If I find that a competitor is very, 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 very strong, let's say, on social advertising or YouTube advertising, I may consider, hey, you know what? If they're able to convert well with YouTube ads, then this new project that I'm working on should also be able to sell well in YouTube ads as well. So it's able to get so that way, if I'm launching, I can actually have more of an insight of what's going to happen down the line. It's not really starting from zero. I'm starting from what other people did. One thing that people have to understand about pay-per-click advertising is that money spent that is lost isn't truly lost, right? When you're launching new campaigns, you're putting in budget, and it could take time before things get optimized before you can get that return on that budget. So basically what you're doing is you're buying data. You're spending money in order to get information. With competitive analysis, you're able to use other people's information. You're able to kind of like other companies have already spent that cash before, right? So what SimilarWeb is allowing me to do is look and see what worked and didn't work for other people. So that way I could ride off of the money that they've already spent. So that way we don't have to spend as much with this new, with this new effort. So it is really invaluable with that as well. In addition to that, I mean, just basic campaign planning. If I'm running search ads or any other type of advertising, it's invaluable for planning, understanding keywords and targeting and whatnot. And then comes times for creatives. On my side, creatives start with the ad itself and then goes down the sales funnel. SimilarWeb is, a very good tool that's going to allow you to see what ads other people are running for similar businesses to help inspire your creative team in order to create, the best ads for this new funnel, and also to understand what type of sales funnels they are running. I mean, I work very heavily in the healthcare space, for example, and man, like with healthcare, there are all types of sales funnels. For example, like there could be a weight loss supplement and one company might be sending to, let's say, a 30-minute video sales letter, while someone else might be sending the traffic first to, let's say, a quiz funnel to help get a lead to then sell them other ways later. It is impossible to really understand these funnels without SimilarWeb, which is something that is very, very, very important for me in order to launch anything new. I could do without it. I mean, I did do without it before, but I think the added benefit that I get from having this insight is invaluable in order to help really save money down the line for my customers. And next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so I covered basically like how important competitive analysis is for me when, let's say, getting involved with a new business, scouting a new company, like determining if I want to partner up with some sort of offer that I might want to promote. It also is very important for building new campaigns and understanding what the competitive landscape is. So that way I'm able to hit the ground running using the knowledge that my competitors have already paid for. That's great. But once you're up and running, once I'm up and running, it works very well for me to optimize those campaigns. So before I was saying that the first thing it does is it helps you understand where you stand. Well, once you're running, you want to understand where, how you progressed, right? So if I'm launching something new, I'd like to see how I compare to my competition, to see if I'm, catching up to them, to see if I'm surpassing them. In addition to that, SimilarWeb is great to help identify changes in the competitive landscape. New competitors are always coming out. A big mistake that I see companies do over and over and over again is kind of get complacent. Like with the healthcare space, again, I like over the past 10 years, I've seen so many different offers come and then go. A big reason they go is that they're not really on top of new trends. They're not on top of new competitors. They could be making a lot of money. Things could be working really, really well. They get complacent, but then something new can happen. Someone new can come out with a very strong offer that could then trump them. It could beat them, and they're stuck out in the cold. Competitive analysis can help prevent that from happening by understanding who the newcomers are. If you see someone all of a sudden appear and they're doing really, really, really well and they're growing faster than you are, then you can use that information to stop and reevaluate your strategy, so that way you can help stay ahead of the curve. So in some ways, it's kind of insurance to make sure that there's not something new that's going on, which you didn't think of or didn't understand that someone else is doing, which might kind of be taking off and leaving you in the dust. Also, it helps me identify lost opportunities. I regularly compare what I'm doing with competitors. If I see, for example, that a client of mine is running very strongly in one geography, but their competition is running well worldwide or in other countries, I'll stop and think, hey, you know what? Maybe we can also be profitable in these other countries. If I see their competition's running, very heavily in Spanish, I'll suggest to the client, you know what? Let's go build Spanish sales funnels because it is working well for your competition. Devices as well. I mean, so many offers have both websites and also mobile apps. SimilarWeb helps you understand what the distribution of traffic is from the two, right? So if I'm promoting someone very heavily and they also have an app and I see their competition is doing well on apps, I'm then going to know that they can also do well on apps. So that's a low-hanging fruit. That's something that we can conquer. Traffic channels as well. If I'm running something that's very search heavy and I see that the competition is able to do well with video ads, I will then consider pushing video ads. And also keyword and targeting. I mean, everything is always changing. People are searching in new ways. It is important to stay on top of the dynamics of it, so that way you're able to keep your campaigns up to date and keep them optimized. In addition, the same is true with landing pages, ads, and sales funnels. It's important to stay on top of what creatives competitors are using, so that way, if they're suddenly doing something which is able to, engage users better than you can understand it, you can improve on it. If they come up with some new sales funnel that is all of a sudden, converting better, that means they could then afford higher bids. If they do something that converts better, they could bid higher, and then they could then beat you, right? So with competitive analysis, particularly SimilarWeb, you're able to see that in order to stay on top of it, which I find really as being invaluable. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. I would divide it into 3 ways. I find it as being extremely important for evaluating and scouting new business and opportunities, building new business, and then maintaining it to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve and keep growing faster than the competition. And I think that's it for now, Gerald. So I guess from here, we'll move on to the Q&A in the panel.
Beautiful summary, Joe. I love that. Actually, two speakers really getting to a few points. One is we're human beings at the end of the day. So as Alec was mentioning, we don't see SERP features. I don't think many of us really go onto Google, for example, and say, I clicked on a really good shopping feed or a product listing ad. I think we just see it as basically a Google search. I think we do, especially for those who are new to digital and trying to really get into that, or maybe you're trying to, for example, convince an executive on your board to try and get more spend, for example, particularly in these times, it's really about the language we use. So don't be using things like monthly search volume. It's actually the number of people searching for these topics in a particular country. And that's really getting to the humanizing simplification of a lot of metrics. And then, as of course Joel mentioned there, it's all around things like market trends, market share, consumer's journey, buyer's journey, all really, really useful stuff. So now what we're going to do is moving away from the slides and really starting to open this up for discussion. I think probably one of the most natural questions, and maybe one for you, Alex, given you've had a little breather, is what are the core components that make a really good competitive analysis, in your opinion?
Well, I think so when we think about our process, that's a good question. When we think about our process, and I think about RAW, and that's reality, opportunity, actions, and results. So a little plug there for 26, but it's just a way of auditing, because I think going back to the piece there is auditing an account, a search account, or whether it's paid or organic. Sometimes you're auditing, if you don't know what the objective is, you're just sort of going, oh, well, the structures doesn't work, or it doesn't look like there's ads limited by budget. And it might be that you look at the SEO keyword universe and then, well, actually you're not competing in certain areas. So the point is it's invaluable. But then you bring it back to that sort of position. The reality of I guess your marketing is where are you? If you don't have the budget, the core component of that competitive analysis is understanding actually who your competitive set is for a start. And I think understanding whether that be at a keyword level, or whether that be at a category level or a consumer level, but ultimately, SimilarWeb allows you to look at it, or suggests other competitive domains. It allows you to look at actually who you're in that auction with, who you're competing with. And that's the first stage, because a lot of the time, you speak to clients and sometimes, who's your competition, and go, oh, well, okay, let's say I'm a top end furniture maker. It's, it's a retailer. It'd be competing with John Lewis Partners, or it'd be competing with, sorry for the UK focus there, but you'll be competing with, whereas actually, when you look in the actual reality of it, is you're competing with Amazon, you're competing with Argos. So having a view on who your competition is usually is either a sort of what I tend to think of as being a, sort of an aspirational competitor list, and then a reality competitor list, because going back to who's actually competing with you in search isn't the people you always think it is. And I think that's the important part, and the reality is key on that. The opportunity then is what is the possible? So actually, if I was to look at that particular competitive set and say, right, okay, well, I think I want to be bigger than them. I want to grow. I want to see where they're. Sorry, my light's gone off. I want to see where they've gone, or where the opportunity is. Then that's actually measurable over a period of time. It's actual, as opposed to it being, I put it into a spreadsheet and I think if I do a formula, I can just grow, and I put a bit here and it goes linear. It doesn't. If you're in a category and it's seasonal, you've got to understand where it's seasonal, but also, I suppose, be able to look back at how a competitor behaves, how much they're spending and paid versus organic. It gives you an idea of where you can win. And I think Joel talked about it nicely. It's about finding ways you can win, because search is pretty mature. There's obviously people out there who will kind of have a novel way of looking at it, and there's maybe fresh ways of thinking. But actually, there's a really good post yesterday on SEO Roundtable, which said Google have come out and said, well, actually, our ranking factors on organic haven't changed in 20 years. And there's an element here where, some of this isn't a surprise. It's just doing really good work consistently. So I think going back to the competitive piece, the reality, the opportunity, and then you've got the bit which is what you then need to do. What are the things you need to do within each of those channels to deliver against that opportunity? And that's where having the first two elements of that competitive insight allows you to be more realistic. Being realistic is what matters, because going back to your point, Gerald, is if you're trying to write a business case and you're trying to convince people to invest, which you should be in marketing, then by being pie in the sky and making stuff up and having really, really big numbers, but not being able to achieve them in month one or week one, isn't going to do anyone any favors. So having ground in reality is essential. It also, by the way, is a real humbler, because there are lots of people out there who I admire who are like, we're going to invent this product, we're going to do this, it's going to be amazing. The world needs to buy it. It's the best thing since sliced bread. or it's a really good product. But the reality is you're in an auction where, like you said, there's millions of shopping feeds. Everyone's got a great story to tell. Everyone's good value, lots of next day delivery. You know, you've got to speak to people in a certain way. But I think that competitive analysis piece is rooted in our planning process and our auditing process.
Super cool.
But by the way, so it does, you can get more granular than like one thing that I like doing with it. Like, for example, it's not just about like, I mean, like we look at it and we compare like, okay, so this is how much traffic I'm getting versus the other guy. Okay, maybe he's better than me here, or maybe he's better than me, or maybe I'm better than him overall. But like, I really, really like using it to get into detail and compare how we're ranking against each other on particular keywords, for example. Like, let's say hypothetically, I'm promoting a bicycle shop in the States. I just threw that out there as an example of a company, right? And I really, and I've got like the best mountain bikes in the world, hypothetically, and they're the best mountain bikes, and I can make a lot of money off of them. Like my profit margins are really good, and like I could use SimilarWeb to see it, and I use SimilarWeb, and I find that my competition is outbidding me on mountain bike keywords, or they're outranking me on mountain bike keywords, not necessarily outbidding. If I see that, I may then realize like, well, you know what? Maybe I need to revamp something that I'm doing with my mountain bike funnel. Let me see what ads they're showing. Let me look at their landing page. Maybe they're somehow able to convert better than me. Maybe they have some really awesome dedicated funnel just for mountain bikes. And that's how they're able to, you know, outrank me because they're able to, you know, outbid me and whatnot. So, I mean, I really enjoy like getting into the little details, because I think the details are where you find the where you could find the low hanging fruit. You know what I mean? And that's one area where it's really invaluable for me, especially in the day in and day out after I have campaigns that are established and running. I mean, I'm regularly checking it in order to see how I compare in that aspect, in order to find like, you know, certain, you know, elements of the campaign that I should be pushing harder because I see that my competitors can.
Very good point, Joel. I think just to sum it up, amazing feedback from both of you. I think it's really about having a key focus, as mentioned. Like, what's the objectives of the competitive research? Is it for a particular business unit? That's going to have a massive impact on competitors you're going to analyze. I think, Alex, you mentioned things like aspirational versus reality competitors. I think another way of summarizing that up is things like direct competitors, indirect competitors, brand, non-brand competitors. But actually, it does get really complicated for a business unit, for example. I love the aspects of granularity, like getting into the nitty-gritties of rank, as Joel mentioned. So, Joel, sticking with you there, in terms of paid search specifically, what things should be considered when it comes to competitors' strengths, and on the flip side, when it comes to competitors' weaknesses? What sort of metrics should people be looking at, or what sort of data sets should people be looking at for those two?
Sorry, there's a dog barking, so I muted my microphone.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay. That's a very good question. So so first of all, I'd like to see how strong a competitor might be with their search campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I could find out is like how granular their campaigns are, how well they're built. Like, for example, if I'm analyzing a mountain, like a bicycles competitor, a bike competitor, I'm just giving that as an example. And I see that they have campaigns built where if I see that their ads match their keywords very well, then I can know that they have a very professional PPC team. When I say that, what I mean is, if I see that, let's say they have mountain bike ads, mountain bike keywords going to mountain bike ads, going to mountain bike sales funnels, along with kids bike ads going to kids bike sales funnels with kids bike keywords, that can show me that, like, you know, they're very that they're sophisticated and know what they're doing. And I then may have more trouble, you know, getting ahead of them. I'll do it, but it could be a bit harder for me. So that's one thing that, you know, I find on the paid search side to really give me an advantage. Also, ads themselves, the ad creative itself is extremely important. I think most advertisers out there aren't testing enough. I mean, with PPC advertising, you choose to pay the amount you want to pay per click, right? But the price you pay per click is only one factor in how well you get ranked. Another factor, which is hugely important, is how good the ad is for the search itself. So, I mean, for me, it's a great creative tool to understand or learn or to get inspiration for what I can test in order to beat my previous ad. Because the more you're able to improve your ads, the less you're going to pay for the same position, or you'll pay the same for a higher position and get a lot more traffic. I mean, so it really helps me stay much more competitive in those two ways.
Gotcha. Super, super useful. Alex, anything else to add? And again, more broadly, even on the affiliate side?
Yeah, I think Joel's right. The creative is really interesting because you know that would be something you would take forever and obviously always change. So whereas based on you know what data Google or Bing have on you. No, I think just to add to that, I think you know there's elements when you think about PC metrics. There's elements you get from Google Ads. The impression share is important, and what you get from the Google Merchant Center. But just to be clear, those only actually tell you really insight on the keywords you're bidding for, and as opposed to what you can get from something like SimilarWeb would be what are the keywords in the total universe. So again, it's about thinking about that the opportunity, not just the people you're competing with on a keyword level, the people you want to compete with because of an opportunity to do so. So, but ultimately, as Joel says, it's all about the whole benefit of search is really around ROI. It's an investment. You will get an ROI, and some of that might be not immediate, some might be slightly longer tail, but nevertheless, it's about understanding that. In terms of affiliate, like I think one of the things would you know for me, affiliate marketing is the baseline of any performance plan. Really, it's certainly underutilized. It's underappreciated in terms of the amount of investment it gets versus other channels. But I think what's useful there is understanding when you're thinking about, for me, what partners you could be partnering with. So one of the biggest the biggest tasks we do as an agency, one of the things we do for our clients is we'll refresh that partner profile. So every meeting we have, we'll go, right, here's 12 new affiliate partners we should be working with in your category. That is you know, it's time consuming, it's then you know followed through, but actually having the opportunity to look at that in conjunction with obviously elements of you know the other platforms you might use, but it's a really good way to see what partnerships you could be exploring. And I think for us it's understanding that actually, again, you know, we think there's my bias is that an affiliate marketing should be anywhere between 15 and 20% of our clients sort of, I guess, performance, our revenue performance. And ultimately, there's a really good way to sort of benchmark where those opportunities are and where they're not. So no, I think there for me, there's you know that it is about results. We don't. I guess the results here are ultimately measured in conversions, which I know there's elements of SimilarWeb. You can see conversion data, but actually it is about what does that visit look like, and usually there is a causation and a correlation to some of the elements of that. But yeah, I think that you know it's for me it's about bringing those tools together, those different tools together, but ultimately using SimilarWeb as the layer across all of those to say, right, give me the context about what I don't know, what are my blind spots.
I love that, particularly about affiliates. You know, it's also can be very massively beneficial for brand awareness too. Just people speaking about a brand, reviewing products of a brand, all really, really good stuff for the overall marketing, not let alone digital marketing strategies, which is super cool. And as you heard, of course, there from Joel too, who live and breathes all things paid search. You know, it's the brilliant basics. It's always about things like not only just what keywords and what coverage are my competitors doing, but what is the quality of their campaigns? How is their destination URLs performing? Does it align with the keywords they're targeting? And also things around creatives, like it's but not just about CPC, it's also about how good the ad is. So amazing advice both. Actually, we have a question from the chat, which is all around what advice can you give when it comes to improving or getting inspirational ideas around creatives themselves? Any advice on that?
I could help. So okay, so I just now pitched how great it is to look at your competitors to get inspiration. Don't do it first. Okay, so part of my process, like if I'm taking something new, I refuse. I will not look at their competitors. I will not even look at what they've been doing until I brainstormed with my team ideas our own ideas first. The reason being is that if you come with like a version mindset with some new product, you're going to come up with a different creative angle than if you look at your competition. Looking at your competition is very, very, very important. But one tip I can give is not to do it until you've thought about it first, because any idea you're going to get is going to be kind of influenced by what you see other people are doing. So part of my process, like I said, is first to just like think of it on our own, and then definitely see what other people are doing. That's really a must. The second thing I'm going to say is that if you see that someone's beating you in this particular marketing channel, they're only able to do that because they are either, their ads are either more engaging than yours, or they're converting better than you, or they're monetizing that traffic better. It's really one of those three. If monetizing traffic can't help you there, that just has to do with like how well you're how much profit you're making for every sale or whatnot. But improving your conversion rate, that's creative, right? So if you see someone's beating you, look at their sales funnel, see how maybe they're able to get more value from that traffic because they're able to convert more of the traffic. But also, if they're beating you, look at their creatives and ads themselves. If they are more engaging, if they're like targeted better for what people are looking for, then it could simply be, if they're built better for what people are looking for, it could simply be that just like coming up with a better ad is just going to like boost your performance. I can't tell you how many times I've run campaigns where we were having trouble making ends meet until a killer ad came along, until we had a creative that was able to beat the one before, CTR went up, and suddenly we're able to beat ad auctions at the cost per click. That makes the sale profitable for us. It's really essential.
Gotcha. Alex?
I love Joel's point there actually about, he's spot on, isn't it, from a paid perspective, because you've got to, the whole thing is it's built around relevance. What's your relevance of your product? You can't mug that in paid search. Now, what I also, I think on that, I take that advice is great advice, and you've got to look at what you're actually selling or what you're actually proposing, and then build around that, and then look at insight from competitors. Now, where I think it's really interesting to talk about creative is actually the creative license you have in organic search. So there is an element here where we're thinking, pay first, and we're thinking about ad creative and what difference that might make. Whereas actually, getting back to the creative, we think we want to kind of be ranking for from an organic perspective. So one of the, I think, touched upon it earlier, was SimilarWeb allows you to look at, and I know other tools do as well, but I think SimilarWeb allows you more than others to think about that one SERP, paid and organic strategy together. What is the gaps from an organic perspective? What areas, what keywords could we be ranking for from an organic perspective we don't need to rank for in paid? How do they work together? And I think going back to the creative thing, the creative question around, actually organics really, it's not just about ad creative, the creative in H1, but it's also then what content do we want to be writing? So then it links us to be able to go and, go deeper dive and look at certain competitors and actually look at why they're ranking for those keywords. And then what is it that actually we should be thinking about from an organic listing? And I think that's the bit where it can be really, really clever. And it gives you license to not just rank for keywords, which you have to be relevant for, because that's what Google suggests in a paid environment. But it's also, again, it's trying to reach customers earlier in that journey. And that's fine, by the way. That's absolutely fine to do that. And organically is a great way to do that.
Massively. Really, really good point about the synergies between those two channels. I guess, in some cases, for example, in paid search, I think, Joel, you mentioned you work a lot in healthcare, but there's obviously a lot of keywords, for example, that are restricted in search volume, and you can't trigger ads for them, for example. Yeah. So, of course, that does differ by industry. Keep the questions coming in the chat. We have another one. In terms of competitive research and analysis, when we think about ongoing competitor research, monitoring, things that can become part of our routine, what would those things be that can be basically instead of looking at competitive research as like twice a year of a project, what sort of things should we be doing on a more regular basis with our competitors in mind? Alex?
Well, I think just to test my knowledge of the platform, but I think where you can look back within the last 7 days on certain aspects on SimilarWeb, so it can be in real time. It doesn't have to be last month or last quarter. There is a bit here where this is about not just relying on the tools. It's a bit like when you're flying a plane. You can't just rely on the dials in front of you. You've got to look outside the window and see what's happening. you will know, by being on top of your client's account, by being in looking at the actual analytics, you'll know when things are slowing. You'll have an eye on competitors. You'll check that every day, and I think that what that then provides is certainly from the last 7-day look. It allows you. It's an early warning sign. It allows you to see back up some kind of intuition you have. Then it's, I think, but you do need the intuition, because of you're not going to get an alarm that goes off, which is anything better than probably what's happening in your own analytics. But the point is it gives you that context, which is pretty quick to then see what competitors do. Now, one of the things, if you've worked with a client for a while and you understand, again, not all the competitors, the majority of competitors, where you know where actually they're probably competing with on certain keywords or certain sort of searches. The reality is there will be those competitors where you're looking for that context and you'll know where to go. And what SimilarWeb can provide you, certainly in that 7-day window, is something which is, okay, that's live. And 7 days is the trading period of obviously, we deal with a lot of our clients in weeks. We don't wait months. So it is that week. And when you sit down on a Monday morning to go through your report with a client, and you're there going, right, why are we down, or why are we up, or and both, by the way, are valid questions. If we're up, it's like, how much more is there? How much are we leaving on the table if we're not? And then if you're down, it's like, well, what's happened? Who's competing with that? And either way, it could be that it is likely to be competitor activity. That's the first place you go, in truth. And I think that's where that sort of insight at a keyword level, with your automated sort of sets around, you get a weekly report again against your competitive set automated from SimilarWeb. So you can look at that. But again, it's the intuition of knowing and then checking that amongst other data sources. But yeah, I mean, that's a really valuable tool.
Really like that early warning signs. Joel, in terms of those like ongoing competitor insights, how would you sprinkle those in a more daily basis?
Oh, okay. Well, SimilarWeb does have they do have alerts, right? So I guess, I mean, so there is the alert, there's this alert tool, which is supposed to they give you alerts as far as any changes that happen. But like, one thing that makes me good at my job is my obsessiveness. I'm very, very, especially when I'm really, really, really into a particular account, I'm very, very obsessive. And because of that obsessiveness, I will find myself checking regularly, stats, particularly on my top keywords. I would use SimilarWeb, let's say, to go into the keyword tool to see who's ranking best for particular keywords that matter the most for me. I'll pay attention to see if a new competitor appears. In addition, I will regularly check my regular competitors to find out if there's something new in their strategy, if they're targeting something new, if they have new sales funnels that they launched, new landing pages, and so on. So, I mean, for me, it's just a matter of just having, in my routine, it's not going to be daily per se, just part of it will be looking to see who else is out there and what they're doing. And
on the flip side,
and also,
yes. Yeah.
No, I say who else is out there, and also who else is targeting what I'm targeting. I'll keep an eye on the competition, and I'll also keep an eye on the top keywords. So
super good. And just again, on the flip side of that, we're obviously talking about what should we incorporate in our day-to-day, but like thinking about challenges, pitfalls, like what should things people not really be focusing on a day-to-day, week-to-week activity?
What shouldn't they be focusing on in a
day-to-day, what's kind of like activity? Almost, for a better phrase, what's kind of like a waste of time or not as good use of it?
That's a big challenge with online marketing in general. With online marketing, you're dealing with like millions of different data points, right? So it is, and so you could find yourself working on something you'll never, ever, ever finish. But the returns or the benefit of what you're doing end up diminishing to the point where it's just not worth your time. I mean, that's just something that's like ongoing. So yeah, I'm obsessive. Like I said, I'm obsessive about these accounts when I'm working on them. So if you're checking stuff too often and the data is just not updated fast enough, you might be wasting your time, right? Also, I think something else that could be a big mistake is reacting too hard to something that has low data. Like if you see someone that they're doing something new, or let's say there's some new keyword that's doing something, but it hasn't really been established long enough, you might look at it and say, aha, that's an idea, when in reality, it's not necessarily a proven idea.
Super good advice. Alex, anything on like what's not a good or as good use of time?
Well, I think so there's an example where, one of the tools we also use for keyword, organic keyword sort of benchmarking it often says, again, there's a thing about reporting sometimes where good reports are to enable better decision making, future decision making. Like a lot of times, reports aren't always used that. And one of the, sometimes, let's say you get a report which says, okay, your biggest competitor on a certain keyword or a keyword set is Amazon, right?
Yeah.
There's an element there where it's like, okay, that's useful, but what do I do with that? So it's not much of a bugbear, but it's a bit of a, okay, is that, if I'm suddenly, competing against Amazon in this space, like that's a different conversation. And I think not so much it's not you shouldn't be paying attention to, but it doesn't, what you don't do is sit there and go, oh, that's interesting. And then, right, anyway, where were we? You have to actually absorb that and go, right, okay, think about it from a customer perspective. The report's telling me that keyword I want to rank for, Amazon have beat me to it, or Amazon are ranking above me. Some of it's paid, some of it's organic, but actually, is there a bit, how do I then, that in itself is a question which cannot be answered just like that. And sometimes it's almost like people just pass over that. Oh, it's expected, pass over. That, and I guess going back to Joel's point, there's a bit of assessment required, which you tend to get within elements of this industry, which people go, I'm picking at that scab. I'm going to pick at that until I satisfied that actually we have something doable. We're going to do something about it, not just accept it. So yeah, my bugbear isn't with that. It's about, I think, how sometimes reporting just becomes wallpaper.
Gotcha. We only have 4 minutes left. It's crazy where this whole time's gone. So I think kind of coming towards the end, we have another question or two from the audience. I think, what's your perspective on the future of competitor research, competitor insights? Any thoughts on what we'll be doing this time next year? Alex?
Well, yeah, interesting. I have got a view on this. And again, when I was at Google, we did actually do a lot of competitor insight, and some of it became harder to achieve because, from a simple perspective, we didn't see the bidding strategies, so we were able to say, hey, your account looks like it could be doing more, and if someone said, well, actually we're bidding on profit, not bidding on reach, then we were like, okay, well, in that case, ignore what I've just said. And I think the bit here, it's going to become more nuanced, and I think certainly as you apply first party data to your mix more and to your targeting, it is going to become harder, less obvious to say, oh, okay, well, I'm beating someone on this perspective. They just might be more efficient. So actually, the answer is it's going to become harder. The auction is going to exist. Everything's going to be an auction. So everything, AdWords paved the way from it. Everything's going to be an auction, programmatic. All media at some point will be programmatic. That's going to be an auction. So you're going to have to be, your competitors will define, to some extent, your performance. They won't define your product. They will define your performance. So, and when you apply those elements of first-party data, the multiple ecosystems, in fact, it's going to become harder, which means that actually tools like this will become even more important. But going back to my point previously, is just accepting that at face value isn't going to be enough. 40% share against Amazon. It's the question is, what do I do about that? How do I change that? What do I need to do? And I think that's the bit where it will change. Unfortunately, it's going to become harder. But then that's a good thing for, I guess, agencies.
Gotcha.
Joel, any thoughts on that around the future?
I'm scared of the future. So one thing that makes, look, everyone, there's more and more regulation regarding things regarding privacy and tracking, which I think which is good in some aspects, but it's not good for the competitive analysis tools' abilities to give us this information, which is so valuable, right? So I mean, like, I'm a bit scared about like the ability of these tools in order to give us what we need. Similar to on the other hand, though, is like one of the best funded and most technologically advanced tools out there. So because of that, I think like it's going to be the best at finding ways around the upcoming challenges that we're going to face from Google and Apple and the rest of them with tracking. But I haven't really thought about anything so optimistic as Alex did, which I think is which is very interesting. I don't see that as being I didn't think of those new tools as being available.
Yeah, that's a really good point around privacy. For sure, it's becoming much more mainstream and talked about now on a daily basis.
So it makes it harder for SimilarWeb to do its business. Oh, sorry, but I think SimilarWeb will do it better than others.
We're blushing. So we're actually at time.
But it's true.
To summarize it all up so far, I guess I think that the key when you're doing anything around competitives, as been said by the panel, is to have a good, clear focus. What's the objective of it? As Alex said, have a really good, clear outline of all of your competitors. Who are they? Do they change by business unit, by a subfolder on your website? And really also get into the nitty-gritty of granularity of information. For example, how well do I rank? Are my competitors bidding on the same terms? As Joel also mentioned, it's also about making sure we're doing a really good job at the foundations. So that's to say, it's not just about saying, are my competitors bidding on this term? Yes or no. It's actually to say, what is the quality of their campaigns? Are they actually pointing to the right parts of their website? How does that impact the consumer's journey? And then a bit more towards the future, I think we heard about regulation, privacy is becoming a big thing, particularly, for example, with GA4. And as Alec mentioned, he thinks it's going to become, all media is going to become, will be programmatic and become very much an auction in that sense. So it's super, super interesting, thought-provoking stuff. For anyone that has left a comment in the chat, we will try and get back to you. Hopefully we can get your email addresses with a few of those questions with the panel, but we'll hope to see you around at the next webinar on all things SimilarWeb digital marketing. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. And thanks once again to our two panelists, Alex and Joel. I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks for having us.